On this episode of Robe Chats, the podcast.
The formal or informal mentor-mentee relationship is something I care a lot about. All of us are choosing, how do I want to spend my life force?
Lighting designer and educator, Sharon Huizinga. Welcome back to Robe Chats, the podcast. My name's Brian Matthews, and we are recording still here at the USITT conference in Columbus. And we are honored today to be joined by lighting designer, projection designer, programmer, Ms. Sharon Huizinga. Sharon, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, you guys. This is fun.
One of the things that we like to start with everyone who joins us is we kind of just want to get your background as to how you got into this crazy world that we call live entertainment production. How did you first get started in this industry?
Oh, sure. So I actually started as an actor, and I went to Interlochen Arts Academy on a scholarship as an actor. And while I was there, I started to have the uncomfortable realization that I was like fine as an actor, but not amazing. And I was surrounded by people who were pretty amazing. And then the second thing that happened, shortly after that realization, we had a Broadway casting director come and visit us and talk to all of us. And he's like, look, if you can do anything else in the world and still live, then acting is not for you. You have to want to do this so badly that you will die if you don't do it. Otherwise, it's too hard. You'll do 40 years of rejections, and year 41 was your big break, and you will have quit before that. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, these people are crazy. I can think of 10 other things I'd be happy doing. I'm definitely not going to die if I don't do this. And I kind of took refuge with the costume shop ladies. And they brought me in and they taught me how to sew. And my mom had been a costumer. So I ended up switching into the whole technical and design area and ended up at University of Wyoming with a full ride scholarship. They had an amazing theater program. And I thought I was a set designer, and then I started doing scenic painting because the professor there Ron Steger did these amazing backdrops for ballet companies. I did that a long time with him. Yeah. I did some lighting there as well, kind of everything. Yeah. I was so hungry for all of it, and it was a feeling of homecoming. And eventually, it's settled. Eventually, it's settled into lighting. And I moved up to Vancouver, went to grad school, realized there, okay, I'm going to drop the whole set design thing and focus entirely on lighting. Dropped out of grad school, got hired by Christie Lights for my very first tour, Dido in 2001. And it was just oh, wow, this whole world exists. And that started a long career where I do theater, dance, and opera, but then would go and do concert touring. I spent years on the road with Diana Krall, did some touring with Nora Jones, a number of other people, but not as the lighting designer. So I would go do all this concert touring, and then I would go back and do regional theater in Canada, doing design, and then I would go do a corporate thing. I moved to New York after a while, was a programmer for Shrek the Musical on Broadway, and was oh, I can make a living as a programmer. This is so cool. Ended up getting involved in the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, had the great honor to work on President Obama's first inauguration as a lighting director, working for Jim Tetlow. So my career has spanned the entire breadth of the stuff that we do. So theater and dance and opera and festivals and concert touring and corporate events and sporting events and I'm sure there's other stuff in there that I'm forgetting, choral things in a church. So I really look at the whole entertainment industry as a whole.
Right.
And then I spent a number of years living in Amsterdam, working both at the Melkweg, which is the Milky Way, as an iconic nightclub where lots of artists come on their career, on their trajectory up in their career, and then they'll do that 30 years later on their trajectory down. And that was with these kind of hardcore tattooed Dutch guys, or as hardcore as Dutch guys can actually be. And simultaneously, I was working as an EOS programmer for the Dutch National Opera and Ballet. And so getting this insight into European opera, spent some time working for ETC as a manufacturer rep and a field project coordinator in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
And then moved into education and wanted to move back to North America to be near my aging parents, and was hired at University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music as a lighting professor, and came in there and was so glad to arrive in that amazing program with a breadth of personal experience that let me recognize students. So I would see people and realize, oh, you probably want to work for a manufacturer. Like, you are a natural at sales, or you're a natural at R&D, or this person is a programmer. This person wants to do big EDM festivals. But because I had some personal experience in many things, I think it's made me a better educator in being able to recognize students and where they might really find fulfillment. And then most recently, I've moved over, taken a professional leave of absence for 2 years from University of Cincinnati, and gone up to Rocklidditz, where they've started the Academy of Live Technology at Rocklidditz, which is a new training program.
Yeah.
Which I bet you're about to ask me about, so I'll stop talking.
But I wanted to circle back to the education side, because do you, when you're speaking to students, right, and about where they want to go in this industry, would it be your recommendation that they try a little bit of everything like you did, or do you kind of let them decide their own path? But do you find the value in having a little bit of costume design, a little bit of set design, a little bit of scenic design? How do you?
Oh, there's two questions there. So the first question is being involved in multiple disciplines, let's call it. So a little bit of costuming, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of this. There's a song that's popping into my head there, but so early in my career, I was trying to be a scenic designer, a scenic painter, kind of a technical director, production manager, and lighting. And I remember thinking, oh, you can do more than one thing, but those 4 things together will progress more slowly. And if I'm only in one discipline, it's the same amount of energy I have, so that one thing will progress more quickly. Right. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong there. But when students ask me that question, like, oh, I kind of want to do all these things, I'm like, you can do all those things. Just one will move ahead, and then the other one will lag behind, and then you'll focus on the other one, and that will move ahead. You can't make all of that happen at the same speed as you can if you focus on one area.
Right.
The second part of the question, my career, since at least 23 or so, has been very much in lighting only, lighting and projection only, but across multiple different genres. And to that, I say, oh, heck yeah, because I think the goal of education for me is to become really employable. So to be able to seamlessly move from, sure, I'll go do that. I'll go do that thing for broadcast because I know how to do lighting for camera. Then I'll run over here and do this festival. Then I'll be a programmer. Then I'll design your like a small play with best friends who are putting on a play. Yeah. But there's no limitation on employability unless someone just doesn't want to do that. That's a perfectly adequate reason to not do something. Yeah. So those are 2 slightly different topics for me, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
When you are designing for the multiple different genres, going from one thing to the next, do you have sort of a process that you find works for you that you can kind of bring to any sort of design, or does each one require its own sort of pathway to get where you need to go?
Yeah, sure. So the things that are based on a common creative wellspring. So when we're looking at a play, that's the script. When we're looking at a dance piece, it's the history of it, if it's a storybook ballet. But anyway, we're all drawing from the same music. We've decided on the music and a concept. There's a choreographer. If it's a musical, you have existing material that everyone is working from, the director, the performers, and all the designers. There is one process that I use for that bucket of stuff, because it starts with the script, or it starts with music and concept for like contemporary dance. If I'm looking at something that is, hey, do you want to come light this car? We're doing some kind of product reveal. We don't have a venue yet. Something where we're not really drawing from a narrative. There is no script. We're sort of in like a wild west of the rest of the entertainment industry. There is a process that one can apply to all of those things, but it is different from the process wherein we're all drawing from the same creative narrative wellspring. Right. I can go into that if you want, but it's going to be a long conversation. Like, do you want the 12 steps?
No, I don't want to give away the secret sauce, because then you gotta go learn from Sharon, which will take us to our next question. You're the program director for the Academy of Live Technology at Rocklittitz. And I was doing my reading about it beforehand and saw that it's actually now it's a 4-year program. Just kind of, since we're at USITT and with our Robe NRG students, walk us through what that program is like now.
Yeah, sure. So the Academy of Live Technology does 2 things. One thing is the 4-year BFA, and the second thing is non-degree granting short courses like boot camps and intensives. So I'll talk about the degree program first. The degree program is like a generalist design and production degree. So in contrast with a conservatory where one would go in to study, I'm there for a BFA in lighting.
Right.
Someone is coming to Academy of Live Technology at Rocklittitz for a BFA in live experience design and production. And every student will take lighting 1, sound 1, visuals 1, staging 1. They can choose, self-select after that, the 101 levels. They can self-select and say, I want to focus on those 2 specifically. And then they carry through a second and a third level of that. Some students, because we're new, we're discovering some of them are like, but I like all 4. I'm like, that's fine. You can keep going with all 4. All students also have 2 semesters of business of the business. One is the business of an event. How does all the money work? Who's paying for what? Who's making what decisions? What money goes to an artist? What money goes to a promoter? What is the producer? That. And the other is business of the business, but personal. Should I be an LLC? How do I write stuff off of my taxes? How do I use Excel, etc.
Right.
They also take courses in like all the managements, professional practices, research methods, but also how is the difference between a production manager, stage manager, tour manager, and how is that different for theater and how's that different for concerts, so that they all get some of that.
Yeah.
And the program also has a significant hands-on component, super embedded in all the day-to-day activities of Rocklittitz with production rehearsals and companies that are on that campus. And we also produce a production season. But we're doing a concert and we're hosting a rave, and we did an installation, an immersive art exhibit with 4Wall as a client, and we're doing a drag show. So we're looking at giving students production opportunities, but ones that are not entirely focused on theater, dance, and opera, but about 20% theater, dance, and opera, because obviously that's our entire history and where we came from.
Is that when you cover the business of the business, is that something that other university programs typically focus on, or is that something that's really kind of special to this program?
Oh, I'm not sure, actually. I know, for instance, that CCM has a 1-semester business of the business course, but I don't know the answer vis-a-vis other programs.
Yeah.
I would guess that we're a little unique in having 2 semesters of it. I would imagine that other schools by now have incorporated 1 semester. I would hope.
Yeah. That's something that has been spoken about in the industry a lot with, technicians and roadies and stuff like that, is how do you basically, you're the business that you're supposed to be taking care of. And I think that's really interesting that you guys are talking about that and covering that. When you go through this, obviously education is something you're very passionate about. When you were coming up, was there somebody that was an educator for you that kind of mentored you in these directions? Is there someone that sticks out in your mind as kind of did that for you?
100%. So like from my undergraduate program, I really credit Ron Steger, who is the scenic painter and scenic designer and was like a white dude who was a Rastafarian. And he ended up moving to Jamaica, actually, funnily enough. But he was so zen and taught us all the design principle of, we'll just put stuff where it goes. We're like, oh, really? We can just like create that on stage. So as an ethos, he was a huge mentor. And then as I moved through my professional career, some production managers and lighting designers, Grant Macri was a front of house audio for, I'm going to like mix it up right now. Anyway, he was a production manager for Fish for a long time. I knew him as the production manager for Diana Krall, but he also spent a long time with Joni Mitchell and Lilith Fair and all of those. And Dale Lynch, who was a lighting designer, and I think has now become the tour manager for Michael Bublé, if I'm not mistaken. They were huge influences in my early career and advocates for me. And when I started, there were not that many women touring, like in concert touring. I wasn't the first, but it was unusual. I was almost always the only woman on the bus. And they were phenomenal advocates, professionally, personally. We got to travel the world together. So the formal or informal mentor-mentee relationship is something I care a lot about and would love an in-depth conversation about in the whole industry. Like, how do we continue that?
Well, another thing I wanted to talk about was the book that you co-authored with Allan Branton. Is called the Design Beyond Lighting, Design Beyond Theater. And the thing that struck me the most, and I'll read the quote, was the aim of this book is about designing your success, not your light plot, equipment, list, or cues. And I thought that was pretty telling as to what's going to be inside. So kind of walk us through what was the driving force behind creating the book, and then what's inside the book for people to go check out?
The driving force behind creating the book was honestly probably COVID, but I've known Allan for a really long time. It
spurred a lot of stuff on people. It got people doing a lot of things.
I've known Allan for a really long time, and he, I know him through Laura Frank, another wonderful, wonderful mentor and friend. And she introduced Allan and I because we both lived in Wyoming, and that was unusual to have two lighting people living in such a sparsely populated state. So we became friendly. And then during COVID, I realized, I have to do stuff to keep these students occupied. We're not doing shows. And I said, why don't we branch into looking at lighting design process for something like a Super Bowl halftime show or the Olympics opening ceremonies, like really large scale things that I realized I wouldn't know what to do if someone came up to me and said, hey, Sharon, we'd like to hire you to be the LD for the XXX Super Bowl halftime show. I would not know what the first step was, because the first step is not, can you send me the script? There isn't one, right? So I called Allan. I was like, would you be willing to share your design process with students? And we can like work through this during COVID. It's going to be great. And he said, design process, what are you talking about? And I said, well, when someone calls you to hire you to do a gig, what is the first thing you do? And he said, well, I asked, what is it? I was like, okay, what do you mean by that? And he said, when is it? Where is it? How much lead time do we have? Are my vendors available? Is my crew available? Is this in a remote location where we can't get equipment? Does anybody know, have they done this before? What venue is it in? Oh, it's outdoors. Is it on TV? Is it not on TV? But this incredible list of what is it questions poured out of him that it made me realize, it's like a sutra. It seems like a simple question, but it has layers and layers and layers of depth, all aimed at trying to get enough information about events that are highly variable that you can create a design plan that will not later screw you over. Even if you wait until you have all the information, it is too late. And I think for students and even myself coming out of theater, we're more conditioned to say, well, I need to know what the script is and what's the tech schedule, and I can assume lots of things. There's a director, there's other designers, there's a stage manager, they're going to call cues. And I got really curious about all this other part of the industry. I'm like, you can't assume any of that. We might have no idea who the talent is until the last minute. So the book is really covering how do you have a lighting design process for the highly variable part of the industry that is not theater, dance, and opera, but yet represents about 80% of the industry and thus 80% of the opportunity for students.
Yeah. That's a good point, because it is so. I've been out to load ins and productions and stuff like that, and there is so much that they're figuring out on the fly, and they have to be able to adapt
Right.
and be able to still make the show work. So I think that's a really a very interesting educational side for people to learn about.
Yeah, yeah. And the part about it's not so much about the equipment, that because technology changes so quickly, like there has to be a design process that's not paying attention to that, because then our energy, eye discipline, if you're a football fan, like pay attention to the right thing. It's easy to get distracted by the wrong thing. All of the lights and where they go on the plot, that's a tool to arrive at, am I ready with very, very minimal time when the cameras come on, right? Allan's background is largely in live broadcast events. So you have so little time that he's really, there's a lot of focus in that book about getting to a state of readiness. And in order to get to that state of readiness, there has to be this thorough what is it analysis, and then a thorough recognition of the only thing I'm supporting is the connection between audience and performer, or audience and event, right? The same is true for a car show. The same is true for any kind of event. And it makes it a little simpler, because if we get all immersed in the technology, we get so distracted by it that it's easy to lose focus, that ultimately people have prepared to come to this an event. It's an occasion. Their goodwill is front loaded. They want this to be great. They bought their tickets months ago. They want to see whoever, fill in the name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be somebody's birthday present. Could be somebody's anniversary. You never know what they're there celebrating.
Yeah.
In the thank you of the book, you thanked the University of Cincinnati College of Conservatory of Music and the students there. Did y'all work with when you were creating the book?
Oh, those students were absolutely the guinea pigs for all of the content in this book. 100%. They all know that. Yeah, they'll all get copies at some point. But yeah, we were trying out, because another thing that was really important to me with this book is, look, there's people teaching lighting all over America, all over the world, but let's say just for the United States. And some of them might want to teach outside of their own expertise, but like how? And I remember my own frustration. Like, I'd love to teach about, I don't know, architectural lighting, but I've never done it. I don't know the things that I need in order to create a paper project and a process to teach these students. So the book also is a guide for teachers if they want to use that to teach a class about lighting for concerts, or lighting for festivals, or lighting for large scale one-offs for broadcasts, or lighting for stand-up comedy. The book has exercises embedded in it, and all the materials that you would need to do a paper project.
That's fantastic. If people are wanting to get a copy of the book, where can they?
They can go to Routledge Focal Press, or they can go to Amazon.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you're obviously passionate about the industry. Where does that passion come from? What is it that keeps driving you to want to do more in the industry and create more? Where does that passion come from for you?
The thing that I serve overall in this lifetime is the raw kinetic potential of any given situation and my ability to manifest something. And where those overlap is where I feel I am completely on my path. And every step I take leads to an expansion, and also leads to benefit that unfolds for many parties. So I'm really always thinking about what is mutually beneficial. How does this benefit students and also the industry at large, and also this other program that I'm partnering with, and also government because they want to run this apprenticeship program? How can we bring the most number of players into a situation and have that benefit them? And that's really the way I look at a job, where I say, does my ability to manifest stuff, given my background and the things I'm interested in, overlap with the raw energetic potential of this situation right now? Yeah. I have tried to do jobs that weren't that, where I would just go and do a job for a paycheck because they told me to. It doesn't work. It's not on my path. It's not an effective use of my life force. And that's important to me. Like, all of us are choosing, how do I want to spend my life force? And I want to spend my life force where it will have the biggest impact, the biggest growth. And sometimes I think of a large ball of energy. I'm like, great, I want that to have momentum on its own, and I'm just feeding it so that the momentum continues. And the more and more people that I can bring in who are going to benefit from this, okay, now we have even more momentum because there's more of us lifting and more of us contributing. That was a long-winded answer, but that's where that passion comes from, is kind of a deep intuitive, it took me a while, but like a deep intuitive understanding of encountering a situation and saying, oh, that's for me. I can do a thing there with my background and my knowledge and my interest and the potential of that situation, that we can light this on fire.
Yeah. I love that, because in an industry that's filled with individuals trying to advance their individual career, it's sort of a alternate way of thinking, you know? Well,
one thing I'm so grateful for is every goal I've ever had in my, I was very ambitious in my younger life, in my 20s. Every goal I've ever had, I have touched it and then gone another like 80% beyond it. At this point, I'm just looking around to see what am I supposed to be doing? Because I actually already did everything I wanted to do like quite a while ago at this point. So now I'm looking around to say, am I supposed to be doing that? Does that have resonance? Whether it's an educational thing or a partnership or a design project, I'm like, does that have resonance? And if it does, like it's going to elevate in some way. I mean, for the audience, for everyone, right? How can this be the most mutually beneficial experience? That's what theater is. That the audience is there, the performers are there, we're all there doing design and production. Like, I hope that all elevates it. I hope so.
Looking back, you mentioned that you've done so much already, and now you're on to the next part. Is there sort of a design or a project in the past that still sort of resonates inside you as an opportunity that was that sort of moment that you were trying to create? Is there one that sticks out in your mind that?
Oh, yeah. So certainly this collaborative writing of the book with Allan Branton was absolutely that. Yeah. When that idea dropped into my head, it has that feeling of, oh, I didn't think of that. That just dropped into my head of, you should go do that now. I'm like, really? Right. Yeah. Okay, let's go do that. And it unfolded in this really joyful and amazing way over 3 years. We put in so many hours, and it never really felt like work. I think we got in one mini argument once over this entire process, and then immediately resolved it. There've been a handful of productions too. There was like long ago, there was a project with the Globe Theatre in Saskatchewan, and it just a production about World War I and a soldier coming back and a love story, and everyone came together so perfectly. Every design element, every performance, it was heart-wrenchingly beautiful. And after that show, I kind of despaired. I went to a colleague who was a lighting designer many years, like more experienced than me. I said, yeah, I'm so worried because I just had this amazing experience, and like that's what every show is supposed to be like, and I've only had the one. And he said, oh no, you're so lucky. I didn't have my first one of those. You're only going to have 3 or 4 of those in your life. Don't worry.
Well, we'll get you let you go on this last one. This is kind of a question I like to ask people, sort of retrospective question, if you will. If you were to encounter young Sharon now, after going through everything that you've done and accomplishing everything that you've done, if you were to talk to that young Sharon that was, trying costumes and trying everything and just trying to find her place, what advice would you give her for? Because, it's hard for the students these days, I think, to try to gauge what success is in this industry. There's so many different types of success. There's the individual success of the feeling you get when you have a really good show, or there's the awards and accolades, or there's the big high name concert tour, that somebody might get. But not everybody's going to get there, right? But how would you basically tell young Sharon to measure success in this industry for longevity outside of just an awards or the accolades? How does someone gauge success in this industry?
The definition of success that I'm interested in for my students is, I hope that you go and do something that you find very personally satisfying. That could be artistic, that could be very technical, but whatever it is that makes you feel really satisfied with people whose company you enjoy, making enough money that your life works. That means really different things to different people. And that's an important part too. Don't worry about what that person's doing over there. For some people, they say, I want it to be massive. I want to be making tons of money. I want to be working with really big names. Like, great, you should absolutely go do that. Someone else might say, I really want to be near my family and they live in this place. I'm like, great, let's go find a thing in that place that you find satisfying, that will make your life work financially with people whose company you enjoy. I don't really think there's anything else other than that, but it implies a fairly profound level of self-awareness. And I think that's a key part of education. And many of us as educators are in there trying to get students to say like, hey, who are you? You don't even need to know that yet, but like, do you like crowds? Do you like other people? Are you introverted? Are you extroverted? Do you like to create things? Do you really have a logical brain? You want to organize everything? Do you really like sales? Would you like to have a scarf and be able to flip it with aplomb? All of that is fine. There's room in the industry for all of it. So honestly, my advice to young Sharon would almost be, just because you can do something and you're good at it doesn't mean you should do that. Sometimes we just need to pay rent. That's fair. But dig deeper into, don't be afraid to want what you want, which means don't be afraid to know who you are, because you need that in order to know what you want. Yeah. Because there's probably a place in the industry where that can be achieved. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I love your outlook. I'm a firm believer in the idea that if we lift each other up, we all rise together. And hearing an educator as yourself voicing that makes me excited for the future of the students that you're going to be bringing through the academy there at Rock Lidditz. So I'm excited to see what you guys do. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us today.
It's been that was really fun.
Remember, you can find our podcast on all your favorite podcasting platforms. You can also watch us on YouTube. And we'll sign off the way that we always do. May the light always shine your way. You can make it the Robe way. Have a great day.